Hi, this is Jay.
This is Bob.
And this is Steve.
And we are Alpha Quadrant 6. We are a science fiction review show. Today we are going to review Avengers Infinity War.
What'd you think? It was good.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, it was, out of the gate, it was a great film. Really enjoyed the whole experience. I thought it was paced well, and it hit on all cylinders, right? So the acting was good. I think the script was tight. There was a good mix of humor and drama. And it succeeded in everything that I was trying to do. So definitely a great superhero movie.
Definitely.
Yeah, I really have to give kudos to first off, the director, Joe and Anthony Russo. I think they're brothers. What they corralled, what they created, I think was amazing, those two guys. And also, you have to mention the two writers. That's Chris Marcus and Stephen McFeely. Think about what they did. I mean, look at the promotional poster, the promotional images of Avengers Infinity War. You've got like 21 people on there. They've got to make a movie that has all of those people and more, but you've got to kind of deal with every person you see there is dealt with in a way, some more than others, of course. You've got to work with their mythology a little and advance it even just a little bit. But you also have to make it fun and entertaining and have big stuff happen. It was an amazing effort. Now compare that to the DC release of Justice League that came out. I mean, they did not succeed, in my opinion, nearly as well as Avengers did. And it was so much fun. It was one of the best superhero movies out there, right? I mean,
yeah, it ranks, I think, in the top 3 or 4. I think one thing you guys didn't mention that was hugely impactful on the quality of this movie was Thanos, the villain.
Oh my God!
When you have a bad
Josh
villain,
Brolin.
So if you go back to the Avengers movie where they're fighting the AI villain, remember that one?
Yep.
I felt that villain was terrible. I didn't feel that. He didn't have gravitas. I didn't feel like he was substantiated in the plot. I just felt like it was a very weird thing that they did with the villain. But Thanos...
Ultron. You got to
it was
mention
Ultron.
Ultron, I mean, I was so disappointed. I mean, it was a decent movie, but I've not seen it since. And it was not... and even Joss was... Whedon was working on it. I'm not sure what happened. But it wasn't as good as I had hoped, especially after the first Avengers movie. Come on, that was epic.
Yeah, it was
so
epic.
They really brought it back, I think, with Avengers 3.
Thanos was successful because, first, Thanos had a legitimate reason to do what he's doing. I mean, at least you can understand. He thinks he's a good guy. And
all the best villains think they're good guys.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was there without a doubt.
He almost swayed me. He actually almost brought me onto his side a couple times when he was talking about what he was doing and why. It's like, I can kind of see it, but his methods kind of suck.
Well, that's what makes it so brilliant because even though you're not evil and you wouldn't go as far as kill people, at least you could get an insight into what he's trying to do. And Thanos was also struggling to get to his goal for a very long time.
Yeah.
And you did kind of feel that Thanos had been trying to do that for thousands or hundreds of millions of years, however old he is. He's definitely not this new villain that is as powerful as the superheroes. He is one of the most powerful entities in the universe.
Well, this movie was at least a decade in the making, right? This was the culmination of multiple other individual movies about all of the players, right? And they definitely were foreshadowing the major plot arc of Infinity War, right? Because we've seen Thanos before in Guardians of the Galaxy, so that was really, they did a great job with that. You didn't feel like anything was like brand new or coming out of left field, And I agree that they did a fantastic job of having different subsets of the Avengers and heroes sort of getting together, kind of a hodgepodge at random, and then they had to work together on one part of the
big
struggle,
puzzle,
and it all worked very well. You never felt lost, like there was too much going on. Like there were other movies that we've seen, recently, like the Star Wars movies. I thought they did a very bad job of that, especially the Force Awakens, where like what's going on? Like you're bouncing around the galaxy, you don't really know what's going on. Whereas here, I never felt like they left me hanging. I thought the experience was smooth and seamless.
Well, that goes back to your original statement about the pacing. The pacing in this film was perfect because it had highs and lows, but they kept. They kept pushing the highs,
Never felt bored, and I didn't feel like I was exhausted, either. It was a good, solid movie experience.
Agreed. And one thing that sticks out for me is the balance again of humor with drama. It's one of the things that classically DC fails at. They're always often they will say it's just way too grim. And the Marvel Universe has always been a little bit more upbeat. Big stuff happens, but it's funny, and the humor was in this movie. I mean, how many times did we laugh out loud? I mean, just really just giggling like a little kid because it was just so funny.
Yeah.
And
although it's interesting
adorable
because
in a lot
I
of ways.
like dark, grim movies, and DC is just a darker universe than Marvel, but I guess they just haven't found their sweet spot yet in terms of
Definitely
tone, whereas Marvel they found their voice. You know?
Very early on,
And I think, inserting comedy into this it's difficult. Like I've said this many times. The actor that plays Thor, Chris Hemsworth.
So one of the Chris's of many Chris's.
Yeah, many Chris's in the franchise. He's playing a 1,500-year-old god.
Yeah.
And he does pull off the humor, but the seriousness as well. And that's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, it's hard. He's being humorous as a serious character. He's not trying to be funny. He's trying to be serious. But like calling
Rocket
Rabbit is hilarious. It's
every
adorable.
Time. I laughed every time.
And he's not trying to be funny. The character's not trying to be funny, but that's very funny. So they did that. They pulled that off very well.
You know what humor circuit that tweaked in my brain? The same as in Doctor Who. Who's the turtle warrior guy? The hilarious guy. He is always calling a young boy girl and a young girl boy, and that just makes me laugh too. It's just a goofy little thing because he's an alien and he can't distinguish between the genders.
Human genders are
right, and it's the same. It's the same with Thor. He can't distinguish between a rabbit and a raccoon, and it just was funny every damn time, and nobody corrected him. Nobody's like, they just went with it. Okay, he's a rabbit. It's just funny, just laughing my ass off.
Yeah, and I feel like my last comment for the spoiler-free review is that I will say that Game of Thrones has had a massive influence on most TV and movies that we see now, and I feel its influence in this movie as well.
You think it goes back to Game of Thrones?
I do.
I mean, I think that the writing in general, in cable, in network series, has been very high, and I do think it's raising the bar across the board.
Yeah.
Because even movies that I think 10, 20 years ago, we would have been like, this is a great movie. Now it's like, that's crap. Like we're so much more critical and we expect so much more. We really want a crafted film now, even out of our eye candy superhero movies, and we don't get it. We're like, nah, it was just not the experience that I'm used to.
Right.
But I'm glad that in this movie, in Infinity War, they rose to that new, very high bar. And when you do, you get an epic film on your hands.
And it's a great flip because TV used to be tier 2 back in the day, and now it's kind of flipped. The quality stuff is really on TV, and now movies playing catch up.
Yeah. All right, now we want to get into some spoiler-ridden, deep dive comments on the show.
So a lot of people are thinking about, all right, this is a great movie, but how is it really different from the comics? So I did a little bit of a dive into that. So I remember like 2 decades ago finding the Infinity Gauntlet and the prequel Thanos Quest, and I read it and I fell in love with it. So I kind of remember what happened, and there are some big differences going on here. So in the movie, Thanos acquires the stones, and he gets them pretty much from the Avengers, and then he gets the Power Stone from the Collector and the Soul Stone from.
It was hidden away.
It was hidden away on that
previous
obscure planet, right? But in the comics, the elders had the stones, and he had to kind of go to each one and kind of steal it, take it, whatever he had to do. And so they didn't do that, obviously. And that makes a lot of sense because you want to involve the Avengers more. Yeah. You don't want to have these elders show up who really haven't even appeared or barely even been mentioned. And some of them were, to be honest, kind of lame. So you don't want like some gardener dude. You don't want to have that. So this was a difference. But also
I think it was good. That's always a trick when you're adapting other work, a book or graphic novels to a movie. You have to consolidate the plot. You have to eliminate characters, eliminate plot lines, and weave them into a much tighter framework.
Right, of course.
Because you just don't have the screen time to develop they were going to develop the elders just so they could play that one role.
Right.
So you just consolidate. But to do that well without it seeming like a mishmash or a rush is hard. And again, I think they pulled that off in this film. It seemed natural. Yeah, of course. Vision has the Mind Stone, okay, and Doctor Strange has the Time Stone. Fine,
right.
Yeah, that all makes sense.
No, it was really good. And one other big difference, there's a few other ones, but one of the biggest is actually ties into Thanos' entire motivation. In the comic, he's basically trying to impress a cloaked woman, Death.
Yeah.
And
he's in love with her.
He's in love with her, and he wants to impress her, and she is forever unimpressed with whatever he does. She's like, whatever. Is that all you got? So he acquires these stones not to kill half the species of half the sentience in the universe, but to impress her. But then when he gets the stones, he's more powerful than Death itself, and then that's a no-no apparently. So that was another big thing. And then, but you couldn't have Mephisto come in, and this really is Disney owned. I mean, they're not going to have some abstract conception of Death and have him have a relationship. So that was another.
It's
great
also
move.
not a great motivation.
Yeah, it wasn't
exactly.
It wasn't good for the movie. It wouldn't play in the movie.
And the changes they made were fantastic for Thanos, right? He wants, he makes an argument for balance, and it brings in his love for Gamora and all this other stuff, and it was really a good move.
Essentially, he made an argument for population control. He's like, a lot of the problems of the universe is that we're just overpopulated. There's too many people, and
for the resources.
For the resources,
and it happened on his own planet.
And it happened. So he's extrapolating from the experience on his own planet, where he warned everybody, he's like, we're exceeding our resources. We got to cut. If we just and this is also his concept of fairness is randomly killing half the population. Rich, poor, doesn't matter.
Right.
It's a lottery. It's 50-50. And then we will thrive. Those who survive and those who sacrifice themselves will have the privilege of having sacrificed themselves for our civilization. So that's where he rationalizes himself as the hero, and he's the only one who's strong enough to do make this hard choice that most of the people are just too sentimental and weak to make. And he wants to make it for the whole universe, and he really thinks it's the right thing to do, and that he's being strong, and he's actually making sacrifices himself in order to pull this off. That's a fantastic villain.
It really is.
And as you say, Bob, it kind of draws you in because you're like, okay, like population control is a real issue. Not that I would randomly kill half the planet, but I mean, it's like we have to think about the population of our planet.
And look at Gamora's planet. Remember the argument? That's when he almost had me, when he was saying how, we wiped out all these people on your planet, but look at your planet now. It's thriving.
Yeah.
People aren't growing up hungry. They have a chance. And that's when I was like, oh boy.
That made me think of the Black Death in Europe. Europe did really well after the Black Death.
Right?
It's true.
But as a plot device, though, it gave us, as the audience, the ability to see a side of this quote-unquote villain who, in all sense of the word, yes, he's a villain because he's killing half the universe's population, but in a sense, though, he isn't a villain in a weird kind of way. And towards the end of the movie, I agree with you. I was like, kind of like seeing his side of things, but not that I agreed, but more of like, he just needs to be dealt with.
Yeah,
but
you have to stop him, but you don't really hate him.
Yeah.
Right.
He's a badass.
Yeah.
He's pretty ruthless. But if you're preparing yourself to kill half of the sentient beings in the universe, you're not going to sweat over one or two other people you've got to kill along the way. Right, so he does become fairly ruthless in carrying
But
out
at the
his
same
plan.
time, though, and I thought this was a cool thing that they did with him, he talked to people.
Yeah.
He wasn't like every time people met him, he's like, I'm just going to kill every one of them.
Yeah.
In a way, like he could have probably easily killed a lot of people, especially towards the end when he's collected more of the stones. He could have just probably been killing people very easily, and he chooses not to.
Right.
Which I found very interesting.
Because he knew that he was going to, if he got his way, that the randomness would sort itself out, and that was part of it. Then that's also where I think a lot of superhero movies fall flat. Is their villain is a cardboard villain,
twirling their mustache,
and their like their one-liners and their motivation, and it's like we've been there so many times.
Well, that was Ultron.
Yeah, with those kind of
didn't
villains,
get Ultron
and you're
at
like,
all.
so your motivation is you want to be evil. Is that all I'm getting from this? You know?
You don't feel good until you kill people, right?
Yeah,
That's
whatever.
what you're trying to sell.
Yeah, so it just falls flat. It was great to have a villain that was complex like this.
He's become one of my favorite villains. Now that even as we're discussing it now, I'm having even greater appreciation for what he accomplished.
Always a sign of a good movie is you like it more as you think about it afterwards, as opposed to other movies where like I enjoyed the thrill of watching it, and then the more I think about it, the less I like it. And it's like,
and Josh Brolin.
I actually really don't like that movie now that I thought about it.
Josh Brolin. I thought it was who's
Ron Perlman.
I thought it was Perlman.
No.
It had a under the
it was a little bit
makeup.
I could see his face in there a little bit.
But I did not see Josh in there at all. But he really worked it. Even with motion capture, which is it's like an interesting medium. He really deserves some serious kudos there.
I thought all the actors did a great job.
Yeah, they did. He kind of stands out. But one thing that made me think though about this is like, all right, population control. Now, are you sure? Was it just half the sentience, or was it half of life in the universe.
I think it was half the sentience.
That makes more sense because if you kill half the life, that's actually a lot of bugs.
That could be counterproductive.
A lot of bugs, a lot of food sources are going to. Okay, so let's assume it's sentient. But also, I'm thinking, all right, this guy. Imagine the power in that gauntlet, in those stones. I mean, instead of killing people, could you just like increase the resources of the universe? I mean, he's got a reality stone. Can he do that? Can he do other things instead of wholesale slaughter? Can he make it easier for the current population to survive? He had the Mind Stone. Could he alter people's perceptions and thoughts, thinking like, yes, we got to take this more seriously, type of stuff?
It's also a temporary fix because how long is it going to take?
Exactly.
So like every 100 or 200 years, is it going to just wipe out half of the universe?
So that seems.
Maybe
it would have been interesting to at least have a passing reference to that consideration. But
so you're right, and they could have developed it a little bit further, meaning they could have developed his motivation, because obviously he's had a lot of time to think about this. And that reminds me of, Bob, you're going to appreciate this, the Shadows from Babylon 5, who are another great villain, because the Shadows they're just out killing everybody. What are they doing? What's their motivation? But it turns out they're an ancient, powerful race, but they think they're helping us, the younger races, by stirring things up and kicking over the anthills, right? Remember that line?
It's almost like pushing evolution on
they're trying to push things forward. Things are getting crusty. We got to break things apart, and then struggle will allow these younger sentient races to advance. And so maybe Thanos
that would have been a cool addition.
That could have been an element to it as well. It's not just the resources, but also like the Gamora's planet, they did better. It wasn't just because they had half the population. This really
galvanized
spurned them on.
I was thinking about the stones, like how powerful are they? They said when the universe was created that those stones were created. As
although that sounds like mythology, and that's fine. They should have made it a little bit more clear that was mythology. They should have a much more interesting origin.
I was thinking while watching the movie, when we meet the giant who crafted the axe for Thor, I was thinking maybe
Tyrion.
It is possible that they were crafted. And that maybe they don't have infinite power. Maybe Thanos wielding them couldn't do anything he wanted. Maybe it was just the universe has properties.
It has to be finite in some way.
Yeah.
I mean, it would make much more sense that they were crafted by a really old power, like a billion-year-old race that's so powerful they're like just maybe observing or not, maybe not even anymore. They've stepped off, right? But
some elders or cosmic entities, like
even above them, the elders to the elders, or whatever.
Right.
For some purpose, and they were left behind.
Because I thought if these were these stones that were created moments after the Big Bang, some inherent part of the universe, and all right, you're going to destroy a soul stone. What are the ramifications of destroying?
I know, don't do that.
It's another thing I think they should have been discussed. Like, wait a second, if we destroy this, what's that? Does that mean? Is it going to destroy all souls in the universe?
Well, the Mind Stone did get destroyed. And it didn't blow up a planet or a solar system. It just kind of went...
Killed one guy.
Yeah, that was underwhelming. Yeah.
She destroyed the Vision's Mind Stone to keep
Thanos
from getting it. And he had to turn back time to reassemble it.
But that's what I'm saying, right? Yeah.
But when it was destroyed,
local. It was very local. Yes, it was.
It didn't affect anyone other than him, as far as we could tell.
Right.
Yeah, but that's like that's like exploding the first atomic bomb. When there's theories out there that it could ignite the atmosphere. You talk about it.
Right. You don't know. Yeah.
You talk about it.
And how can you predict?
You talk about it.
I don't even think that Doctor Strange would know what would happen if one of those got blown up.
But the fact that it was localized to me means that this is an artifact of an ancient culture and not an artifact of the birth of the universe.
I agree.
So that's all I'm saying.
Yeah. You would expect all of reality to change at that point.
If you look at the stats, I mean, these stones have stats. I mean, the power stone, with it you could destroy a civilization. So that makes me think that, all right, that's kind of like towards the upper end. I mean, you're not going to wipe out a quadrant of the galaxy with it, but you can wipe out an entire civilization. Right, type of thing. What else? The space stone lets you basically creates wormholes between you could travel, little portals everywhere.
I mean, it certainly makes sense that these are artifacts of a really powerful civilization, right? Something like that.
But I thought, now one of the things, tell me if you guys felt the same way. Now the reality stone, that sounds pretty powerful, a reality stone.
Yeah.
And I was waiting for him to actually screw with reality. And I loved when he did do it, like with Drax and and Antenna Girl. He basically turned him into like these
puzzle pieces.
Puzzle pieces that fell apart, and she became this springy whatever. Yeah. That was good, and the bubbles, the guns. I like that. I like that because that if you think about it, that's too powerful. I mean, he could have stepped into Wakanda, and he could have turned everybody into Play-Doh. He could have frozen time, and so in a sense, he wasn't really using it to its full extent. But then there'd be no movie. It'd be too easy. I mean, it was easy enough for him to defeat everybody.
Yeah,
once he got make it too easy.
And once he got all of them right,
he even after he had the first 2 stones. I mean, it was somebody commenting, all right, he's already unbeatable. He's already unbeatable, and every stone that he got made him even more unbeatable. I really like when Doctor Strange rifled through over 1 million possible scenarios. Like, let's see if I do this, like playing a video game 1 million times. Let's see if I do this, if we do this.
Great scene.
Yeah, and you can see he's sort of fast forwarding through time. That was great. It was a great resource, and he comes up with the one path
out of millions
to victory, over 1 million paths.
And we don't know what the result. We don't know what the end game of what he saw was. We don't know how successful it was. I guess.
But he said before he vanished, he said that was the only way. Yeah. And so whatever he did,
right.
And this gets to the ending.
And that's the key to
the
the
big
ending
mystery
of the movie.
Ending. So it was brave of them to end the movie destroying half of their franchises.
Yeah, of course.
Spider-Man, he's gone. Guardians of the Galaxy, they're gone. So we obviously know it's not going to stand, right? They're going to and because Doctor Strange knew the one path to victory, and he had the Time Stone. He gives the Time Stone willingly to Thanos. My guess is he did something to the Time Stone so that it would undo whatever Thanos does.
Possibly, and perhaps Tony Stark is critical to that, which is because him.
They made a big deal about
him saving Stark was kind of like he said. He specifically said, "I will not save you."
Yeah.
And so I think Stark may be critical. Stark is probably critical to that, and even his own death, even. Doctor Strange's death itself is not going to impede his plan. Right. I mean, that seems most likely. But it was a brave move. I think it might have been braver if they reined back the slaughter a little bit, so that you could think, are they really going to leave it like this? Are these people really dead? Because they're not like the high end guys, but they're the more lower end kind of.
But then it would have been really contrived, though, if like all the high end guys survived and they only killed off peripheral characters.
Right, you need big.
You could have thought they would keep it. But it would have seemed so contrived.
I mean, I thought
it's a no-win situation then, really.
Yeah.
When the movie ended, I'm like, oh, was the movie just ended?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And that was good. I like being surprised with that.
Yeah,
now listen, I want to shift over to Thanos' minions.
Yes, best minions of all time, pretty much.
They were great.
They rocked it. When I first saw them, I'm like, all right, they're minions. They're disposable and not very powerful.
They were not red shirts.
They were not. They were not.
And so, Bob, what's the name of the one?
One of my favorite was Ebony Maw. So this is a guy in the very beginning. You see him walking through the corpses and half dead of
Asgard.
The Asgard ship, and he's basically preaching to them, saying, your deaths is good for the greater good, and you should feel proud that you
served Thanos."
And I'm thinking, all right, this guy is some kind of religious nut, and he turns into one of my favorite.
He was great.
Characters.
Yeah, he was really
fantastic.
interesting.
Let me read.
Really powerful too. I mean, his telekinetic powers were powerful.
Oh, yeah.
But also he knew how to use them.
Yeah.
He used them skillfully.
Right.
Yeah, you could tell.
He's done this before.
I mean, he stood toe to toe with Iron Man. He stood toe to toe with the Hulk.
No, he never hulked out. Remember?
Oh, he tried to Hulk out.
Yeah,
that was cool
that
too.
Was funny
right?
too.
I really like that.
Banner was like, "Come on, Hulk." Hulk's like, "No, I'm scared."
Yeah.
This Hulk had his ass handed to him by Thanos.
Quick aside. So there was something incredibly rewarding to see the Hulk have his ass handed to him so quickly. That, more than anything, it was a quick way to say, this guy is something. This Thanos, he took out
the Power Stone. He had the Power Stone already.
Right. And that's why he had the Power Stone. But we can't. I don't want to leave the minions, because here's a great quote from Variety that I read that really made me appreciate even Ebony Maw even more. It's like, early on, a donate-shaped alien spaceship lands in Midtown Manhattan, allowing the effete continental sadist Ebony Maw, who's like a kick-ass version of the ghost of Jacob Marley. Isn't that a great description? When he was floating through that street, having all the metal follow him, that guy was.
Yeah. And at first I'm like, really? So Thanos is sending these minions to go pick up 2 stones on Earth? But no,
they're not just minions.
They should have succeeded.
Yeah, they're on par with superheroes.
Yeah.
So jumping back to the Hulk real quick, that the Hulk's power gets stronger as he gets more
Right.
angry.
Yes.
So that's why Thanos kicking his ass was epic. That was profound.
He's
Because
got performance anxiety now. He
I
can't-
guess
right,
so.
essentially-
No, but still, like, every time Hulk gets hit by, something that
He gets
gets
more
shot, he gets
powerful.
more powerful.
Yeah, and they bigger too, right? Does he
Yeah.
get a little bit bigger as well?
And it
but
didn't
yeah,
but Thanos got the jump on him.
he kicked his ass too well. I mean,
Yeah.
this guy, he could destroy a civilization. So yeah, he's just too powerful for the Hulk, and that's something the Hulk has never really experienced before.
All right, going back now.
Fantastic.
Ebony
All right.
Maw's death was awesome, right? So we have this whole thing with Spider-Man / Peter Parker setting up the fact that he loves like quoting movies, and it seems to be like movies from the 80s and 90s. And he brings up the movie Aliens, and they said something about being spaced and all that stuff. And he's referencing the idea at the end of the movie Alien when Ripley spaces the alien. That's how the first movie ends. And they actually did that to Ebony Maw's character. I don't know if the two of them had that plan. I think they did. He and Iron Man had that planned. They spaced him, and it was just a cool way for him to go.
And Stark was saying all along, I don't want to hear any more modern culture references from you, and he saved the day with modern geekery.
The relationship between Stark and Spider-Man
Wonderful.
was
Spot
a
on.
gem.
Yeah.
And one of the bright spots of a great movie. They really have great chemistry together.
Yeah.
And it's weird to have Spider-Man ported over to the Marvel
But they made
franchise.
it work seamlessly.
They made it
man.
work seamlessly.
Yeah.
And then I was a little, at first I'm like, really, Spider-Man has Iron Man, like a Spider-Man version of Iron Man
I'm so
suit?
cool with that. It's
But
awesome.
I'm cool with it now. It was so awesome,
Yeah.
and it meshed so well with Spider-Man's whole vibe.
And-
they made it work. I'm good with that.
But if he's Iron Man's sidekick, there's perks with that role, right?
Yeah.
He's got,
Yeah,
of course.
And Iron Man had that thing flown in, like that was like a safety mechanism
Yes.
to save him.
Right.
Which I loved. I thought that was really cool.
It's a great touch because when you first see Spider-Man, he's in his old suit, and I'm like, wait, where's his awesome
he turned
mech
it down
suit?
at the end of the last
Right.
movie.
So
Iron Man is one of those guys where he sits there and he thinks, what am I going to
He
need?
has contingency upon contingency.
He's like
I love
Batman.
love.
That's the
Yeah.
Batman way of
And,
solving problems.
Of course, we're talking about Iron Man. We can't not talk about his
Nano
nanotech
armor.
suit.
Yeah, his nano suit.
Oh my God, I loved his old armor, and I've heard about the nano armor, but seeing it in
Yeah.
3D
Yeah, it
like
was
that,
powerful.
it was gorgeous. I'm gonna
Yeah.
buy one. I have to.
I mean,
it
so
was gorgeous, and the
He's
weapons,
always
of
got
course.
his armor on him.
Always has his
He
armor.
always has his armor.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. He's got all his armor, all his nano armor, in this little thing around
Well, I
his
think
chest.
in
Okay.
the comic book it was in his bones. Like it was literally so he had to
That's
come
the
out.
marrow, the
Yeah.
nano marrow.
No, really, because that's a good point. Is like because it's going to fit in that. It would,
Nano's
it would
awesome,
also
but
be
come
pretty
on.
heavy.
Yeah.
But so they bring up
Well,
the fact
heavy,
that
it could be made out of something
whatever.
Yeah.
It's still come on,
Yeah.
come on. It's got to have some mass to it if it's going to cover him
Right.
in armor and protect him.
You need atoms.
Yeah, it's
basically.
got to have some mass to it, but and to have it all concentrated in such a small space. But they solved that problem by having it be in his bones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
All right.
cool, yeah.
Good creative solution, but that armor was epic.
was cool.
That's my favorite.
Yeah.
And they could have made it look like the old armor, but no, they changed it in a way that
It was sleeker.
Love it.
Yeah, it just had a different
Love it.
texture
Oh my
to it.
God.
It was very cool. And of course, the thing is, with that armor, he can, he's like, okay, I want a rocket engine on my
Yeah.
feet.
The versatility that now it's insane. It's almost too good, right? It's
Yeah.
almost magical at this point. Where what weapon do I need? He's got like a little
Yeah.
gizmo.
How about,
that can
but
do-
how about when those
change into
things,
anything?
those things came out
They
of his
fan
back,
out.
and there was like these
God.
fins behind him, and then it was like
To
adding to
amplify-
his, yeah. So he was firing, and
Love
those things behind him were firing as well. That was great.
Or how about when he wants to go into overdrive when he's flying? The big nozzle
Yeah,
appears
yeah.
right where it's one big nozzle at his feet. Oh, it's so.
Yeah, I always
Awesome.
want with Iron Man. Every time you see a major upgrade to his armor, I'm like, they're going too far. You're painting yourself into a corner. Like he's gonna have a suit that's indestructible.
Right, that's too good, right? I mean, where do we go beyond? After this?
now it's versatile.
Yeah.
And there are some powerful aspects to it, but it's still just metal around him, so it's still
Yeah.
he can still get
Right.
beaten like Thanos.
Yeah, he
still-
did. He
Oh,
beat
yeah.
the armor off him. All right, going back
Kicked
to
his butt.
Thanos' minions. I think my favorite of all the minions was Proxima Midnight, though. That was
Even
the
more than
woman.
Ebony Maw?
Well, I like Ebony Maw was great, but she really exuded evil. There was
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
scary about her. And at the end, when she was fighting in Wakanda, things got serious
Yeah.
with her. Like I actually
Yeah.
thought she was going to take somebody down. I loved it. I thought she was really cool. I liked the horns were really cool. Like everything about her just exuded evil.
So should we talk about the ending?
Yeah.
The post-credits?
It's time. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
Motherfucker.
the post credits. So
all right, so
Yeah, I thought you were talking about Samuel L. Jackson.
well, yeah, that part,
Yeah.
that scene.
so wait, let's have a lead up for this now. So you're watching a Marvel movie.
you know there's going to be an after
The movie's
credits.
over. The credits
And then
start,
half the people
and we
leave the
laugh.
theater.
We always will laugh at I'd say 15 to 20% of the people that walk out. It's like, have you never seen one of these movies before? Hello, I want to shout it out, but like whatever.
Yeah.
I jokingly said they're a part of the 50% that's going to be killed. Like, come on,
That's how you determine which.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
don't let me choose who dies.
Yeah.
Right?
So all right, so then it happens after long credits, which always makes me incredibly impressed with the effort and the talent and the sheer quantity of
thousands of
people,
people, yeah.
required to put a movie like this together. It's an endless list of awesome people.
So Nick Fury, the head of Shield,
Yeah.
and his sidekick. It's like the Rapture, right? Half the people are suddenly gone.
Rapture, my
There's,
God.
cars are
news.
crashing,
Yeah.
and helicopters are crashing, and then she vanishes, and so he panics. He's like, "All right, I gotta send up the emergency signal." And then he right before he's like vanishing, he activates something, and we see the
signal,
last scene, and it's the signal
Of
for
what?
Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
Oh wow, man!
So
Yes.
Captain Marvel is going to save the day, I guess, at the end of everything.
And don't forget that the very last thing that that he said was "motherfucker."
Yo, that was perfect.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
So Captain
Perfect.
Marvel. So in the
I
movie,
love that.
The Captain Marvel that we're going to see is actually in the comic book is the second Captain Marvel. Do you know this? So the first Captain Marvel had the bands, the power bands on him that gave him the ability to do all the things that he could do, and the energy that was coursing through his body gave him cancer and it killed him.
Yeah.
It killed the character. Now I don't know if this is going to be a part of the lore in the movie,
Because
but
we haven't seen Captain Marvel in any
right.
film yet.
Yep.
There's only pure comic book lore at this
So
point.
so the second Captain Marvel is a woman. And apparently she took the
Cool.
bands from the first Captain Marvel and has just got the power now.
She just hasn't gotten her cancer yet.
Yeah, we don't know what happens to her. But she is considered to be an A-level hero. She's
Yeah.
on par with Thor and those guys, which is
Yeah.
amazing. So yeah.
Ooh, wow,
yeah,
excellent.
That's going to be cool.
So are we going to get a standalone Captain Marvel movie, or is she just going to
Yes.
come?
They're filming it.
Okay, and that's going to be before Thanos returns.
Of course, they have to.
Have part
Yeah.
2, like
Yeah.
in a year, I think.
Just a year.
Yeah, which
Do we have anything firm on that?
I don't know how firm it is, but I heard about a year.
I like
June,
how they
maybe
kept
June.
Ant-Man totally out of the movie. They made some throwaway line like, yeah, Ant-Man's busy doing something else because his movie's coming out.
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know,
so- yeah.
And he couldn't take any part in this. And then I guess then we'll get a Captain Marvel, and then Thanos
Yeah.
returns.
And that may be the last Avengers movie with this cast.
Really? Why?
Because, how long can they go?
I think they can just keep iterating it.
Well, they're closing lots of threads
Well-
with the sequel next year. So that thread's going to end. I mean, so
But
then they'll
I
have
also-
to build new
A lot of the
plots to
a
resolve.
lot of the actors.
Some of the actors are going. I mean,
contracts are up, and we don't know what's
Yeah.
going to happen.
right? Yeah, I mean, we're going to lose some of the big names. So I don't know what they're going to do. Either they're going to retire them, and you won't really see them, or they're going to replace them. Some of these guys you can't really replace Iron Man, Tony Stark.
Yeah, who's going to
I
play
mean, who's
him?
going to? It's going to be tough, but we'll see what happens.
He makes that character,
Yeah, it's always going to be tricky when you have a beloved character who's doing a great job, like Iron Man. But you can do it. You just got to find the right
Yeah.
actor,
Yeah.
and not try to repeat, right? Not try to replace or repeat it, but try
like the
to
Doctor, make it your own.
make it. They have to make it their own.
Yeah.
Exactly, and you could do it.
Kind of like the way they did with Dumbledore. It wasn't really it was a very different character,
Yeah.
Yeah, although that was an dead actor, not a character change. It
Yeah, they had to do it though. But the guy
Yeah.
wasn't trying to play Dumbledore as the other actor. He
did his own.
version.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
He wasn't
to a
trying to do an
certain extent.
imitation. But I guess they're same thing with the X-Men, another Marvel franchise. I mean, the X-Men is
Yeah.
kind of petering out, and now they're introducing a younger generation of mutants. We'll see how that goes, but they got to make it. They can't just redo the same thing over again, right?
Right.
Like Star Wars, don't
Yeah.
just give us the same thing we saw already.
Yeah, we don't need the same
Right.
plot. Yeah.
do something new, please.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. Just come up with new stuff. That'd
Yeah.
be great. New characters.
Hire, what do you call them, writers?
Yeah.
To write new story, a new plot, new characters.
So we could literally go on and talk more about other details in the movie, but we think we gave you a good overview. You go out and see it if you haven't seen it. I hope you saw it if you watched this. And guys, if you like the show, if you like science fiction, then you got to go to patreon.com/Alpha Quadrant and the number 6, and you can become a patron of ours and help us continue to go.